Hello and welcome to the Punished for Protecting Live broadcast with your host, Francesca Amato, national expert in the Americans with Disabilities Act, domestic violence and child abuse advocate, best-selling author, and founder of Punished for Protecting Incorporated. We welcome all of our viewers watching on Facebook via Punished for Protecting News and the CPS News Network. If you're watching on YouTube at Punish No More and Free to Protect, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. You can also find Punish for Protecting News on Rumble. Now, without further ado, here is your host, Francesca Amato.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our episode of Massacred Mommies Don't Report Abuse. Yes, you heard that correctly. Massacred Mommies Don't Report Abuse. I'm your host, Francesca Amato, and you're watching Punish for Protecting News. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing these videos and whatever platform you're watching it on. I appreciate when you share them and hit the notification icons on YouTube or Punish for Protecting News Facebook, or if you're watching later after the live feed, which would be aired on CPS News Network or Rumble, please be sure to subscribe. I do appreciate that. Tonight, I have a group of mothers. I have 6 mothers that will be on this broadcast tonight, professional women with clean backgrounds, and all of them, each and every one of them, have lost their children. I don't even like saying that. They knew right where their children were when they were stolen. They didn't lose their children. They weren't abducted in a Walmart, or they lost them because they did something that they shouldn't have done, which common sense would tell you that the courts are supposed to be based in. Matter of fact, being a national advocate, courts all over the country, no matter what state you're in, they will give you specific reasons as to why somebody should not have access to their children or should be supervised. And yet the majority of these mothers, including my book, in which you'll be able to see later on how to get that, had a time in their life where they weren't terminated from their children, but their children had no access to their children thanks to a family court judge. Okay. And a lot of people say, CPS. The family court judges are the ones that make the orders. They're the ones that make the orders, and CPS really has no authority. It's the family court judges that make these orders that endanger the lives of children that you have to live by. You or I have to live by. And it's a conundrum. It's not something that any normal thinking person, no reasonable, rational person can wrap their head around as to why an order would make no sense, as to why an order would mean to put the children or child with an abuser of drugs, a criminal, somebody who has a criminal record, domestic violence or assault and battery, attacks on women and attacks on children, attacks on other men. None of this makes sense. And if you look at all the criteria for why they would be supervised visitation, we're looking at cases where an innocent parent, mother and or father in some cases, has zero access to their kids, or they can only be supervised. And when you look at it, you're like, why in the world? This doesn't match anything. This doesn't make common sense, but it doesn't make legal sense either. So the women that I have tonight are also best-selling authors. They're broadcasters. They have professional backgrounds, clean backgrounds. Each and every one of them are going to tell their stories, and we're going to talk about why we named this Massacred Mommies Don't Report Abuse. So without further ado, I'm going to start out with Marianne Petrie, and she is the host of Slam the Gavel podcast. And welcome, Marianne. Tell us a little bit about your podcast, your background, and why you're doing your podcast, and what happened to you.
Well, thank you for having me on, Fran. I totally appreciate it. My podcast is Slam the Gavel podcast. I had been a registered nurse for almost 23 years until, I set my ex up on a date with a woman who I wasn't sure or was sure that she worked in the courthouse. I don't recall, but I found out soon enough what she was doing, because we had actually co-parented for close to 10 years until she came into this picture and started inserting herself in between the co-parent relationship and that of myself and my children. And she couldn't have kids of her own, so she decided to work on mine, unfortunately. So what had happened was CPS was called. I had back-to-back false accusations of emotional child abuse, and I was exonerated during this whole family court hearing trial. And the judge didn't care that I was exonerated. He did not put us back to 50-50. And he wanted to play the false narrative that I was emotionally abusing my children, because he and the opposing attorney were BFFs in the DA's department years before he became a judge. And that's how this game is played. It's who knows the judge, whose attorney knows the judge, and who makes the most money is going to win. And what they do is they set people up to lose their careers, and which I did, and then go after them for child support. And that led me to a heart attack after being in jail for 5 days. That was another story. That's in the book. You'll have to read that one. But I did have a Superior Court win on the child support, which is very rare to win on child support, because they want the Title 4D money. And that put the lower court judge in her place where she belonged, and she actually belongs off the bench.
Yeah, no question.
So then a couple years had passed, and people kept asking what happened with the kids, what happened. And so I got tired of it, and I wrote the book, Dismantling Family Court Corruption: Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough.
Yeah.
And that came out. And then within 3 weeks, I had a Canadian producer approach me wanting the rights to the book to make a film based off the book. It wouldn't be about me. It would be about what's going on in these family courts. So we're just waiting on that. And, I'm just doing this podcast to help other people share their story and share their victories. And show other people that there is hope.
Yeah, there is hope, but there is definitely hope. But the thing is that, Marianne, did you ever think something like this would ever happen? Did you ever, in your wildest dream, think that something like this would ever happen? Would you say that coming through the family court system, living your life and living a good, clean life you didn't have law enforcement on your tail, or you weren't chased by the FBI, you had a normal life, right? All of a sudden you find yourself in this vortex of family court. Would you say your children ended up better because of the orders of a family court judge, or?
No. Oh, this guy, this judge ran the courtroom like a 3-ring circus. 1 minute we're talking about custody, because that's really why we were in there to begin with. Then he starts talking about child support. Then he starts talking about a pension fund. Little did I know that he was suffering from pancreatitis. And I would really like to know what medication he was on when he was in this courtroom, because our family's not the only family that suffered with this judge. We're not the only ones, but my children are not the same. The oldest has not really spoken to me since 2014. The father essentially bought her off in a way that she would lie to the judge twice to take the boys away from me. Then the middle one, he, lack of a better word, brainwashed him. He's kind of coming around now. He's coming out of the fog. The youngest remained normal because they just left him alone. Thank God.
So that's proof right there. And I know that this is like years of a lot of trauma and a lot of pain, and you suffered a heart attack. As a young woman, you suffered a heart attack from this.
Yeah.
But there's proof just by there showing the ones that they touched and the one that they didn't touch, that child was able to grow up healthy, mentally stable and healthy. Thank you for that. part of your story, and I'm going to bring you back out in a little bit. So please stay put.
Okay.
All right. And I'm going to bring out Valerie to the string. Valerie, hello.
Hi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Valerie, I've been doing this for over 15 years and I see crazy every day all over the country. This story, well, first of all, before we even get into that part, tell us about your background. What is your education level? Give me a little bit about your background.
I have a PhD in International Development Studies and Anthropology. All of my research was on issues of HIV/AIDS, hunger, poverty in East Africa. I work at Cornell University. I've been a passionate professional and mom for a very long time.
So you're not a bum in the street. You're not an intravenous drug user.
No.
You're not, I'm being facetious, obviously.
Yeah.
You're not somebody looking at this and not knowing anything about family court prior to what you just dealt with. And yours was in conjunction with some crazy CPS stuff, which I like to call child predator services. Before this took place in your life, did you ever think in a million years that something like this could happen to you and your family?
Not at all. Are
you still in shock? Literally, are you still in shock?
It's like as more time.
Oh, signal. Okay, we have a little, Marianne, Valerie, we have a little, you're frozen. So I don't know if you're having can anybody tell me if they can hear her or is she just frozen to me? And hold that dial, everyone. Thank you for the comments and the compliments. I am not hearing Valerie. Can someone comment and tell me if they are? Because if it's just on my end. Okay, I'm going to bring her out and bring her back in. She's frozen. Okay, bear with us, everybody. I'm going to bring Valerie out and back and bring her back in. I'm going to bring Valerie back in just a minute here. I'm going to bring someone else in right now. I'm going to bring in Giovanna in the meantime, and hopefully someone can if one of you can go to Valerie and let her know she was frozen and we need to complete that conversation. Giovanna, hello.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. I know that we had previously, we just had Marianne Petrie from Slam the Gavel. I believe that's Pennsylvania. We had Valerie on. We're going to get back to her in a minute. Giovanna, I think you're New York State.
Yeah.
Talk to us. Tell us about your professional background, first of all. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah. So I have a 13, 14 year career in finance. Grew up in a Catholic home. My father was a federal agent. My mother was a school teacher, one of 3 children. I've never been in trouble with the law, never done drugs, not even a big drink, rarely drink, never been in any kind of trouble whatsoever. And I have my one child who's 9.5 and, I'm a pretty darn good mom. And I have never had the ability to show that in family court.
So prior to your, dealing with family court, which has been how long now? What would you say about this?
Almost 7 years, going on 7 years this year.
Almost 7 years. So 7 years ago, did you know anything about family court 7 years ago?
No.
So if somebody told you a story about this, what would be your first thought? What would you think?
If someone came to me and told me my story back to me, and I was hearing it for the first time, I would think, there's no way that happens. You're not telling me something. There must be something wrong that you're not telling me. I just wouldn't believe that this is reality.
Yeah. And if somebody doesn't have access to their child, what would be your first thought about that? What would you think common sense would tell you if they don't have access to their own child?
Common sense. Your first thought is, well, they must have done something bad to have their children taken from them. That's what your first thought is.
And since you've been involved with Punish for Protecting and kind of doing your own research because of what you've dealt with,
right?
What have you seen? What have you seen?
That's absolutely not the case. It's the children are being taken from perfectly good, loving, safe parents and placed with abusers, and they're being harmed psychologically, physically, sexually. It's absolutely unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
There's somebody said somebody's chewing loudly in the background. That's my dog Wesley, by the way. It's not me. I don't have a breathing problem. I am sorry. Whenever I'm live, he decides he wants to chew a bone. He'll never do it. If I'm not live, he doesn't care. The bones could be, he doesn't care. But because I'm live, he wants to be a part of the show. I'm sorry about that. Giovanna, I'm gonna bring you in the back. Somebody had commented. Vicky. Hi, Vicky. I'm so sorry about that. I'm gonna put you in the back again, but I'm bringing you guys back out. I'm gonna try to go ahead and bring Marianne out so she can finish what we were just talking about, and then I will bring more guests in because we have some show this evening, ladies and gentlemen that are watching. So let's bring Marianne back out because I have more questions for you. I'm sorry, not Marianne. Forgive me. No. I'm sorry. I'm losing my brain here. I'm sorry. You are coming back, but I need Valerie to finish what we were talking about. Sorry. Forgive me, guys. Valerie, sorry. You froze and I'm right at that question. So if you can.
Okay. Hopefully you can hear me and I don't freeze again. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I would have never thought that this would have happened to me. I mean, as more time goes on, I realize that I'm very traumatized. Like I don't want to be. I want to just like go on, and I wish I wasn't waking up really early in the morning and feeling the need to kind of rehash things through filing a formal complaint. But I am very traumatized.
Yeah.
By
and like I said to the other lady, your children, it's happened to one child, but it affected both. Your children are now better off because of family court or worse off? What would you say? What's the simple answer? She's freezing again.
Absolutely not. Oh, absolutely not. We're very, very traumatized. I'm not sure how we ever get over this or move forward.
And being alumni of Cornell University, right? And I hate that it's freezing because I see it slowing you down. I can see it even. I don't know what's going on with your internet.
So sorry.
That's okay.
Really?
But I'm trying to get the words in so they can hear you. Being a part of, seeing the attorneys that come through Cornell University, we look up to Cornell University. We respect that university. Seeing what's coming out of Cornell University now, how does that make you feel? Like, how does that make you feel?
Just disgust of one of the highest rate of placement for the.
Okay, she is freezing again. I'm going to bring her back out. I don't know if you can hear me though, Valerie. If you can find a spot in your house that has better Wi-Fi, or
once they graduate, and
she's trying to talk about the placement in Cornell, and we're not hearing that. It's really important. I'm going to have to bring her back out. And the thing is, if anybody in the group can chat over to, I'd really appreciate if you guys can chat over to Valerie and get her to get the Wi-Fi working. We need her on this program. I'm going to go ahead and bring out Amy Palacios, which you guys have seen multiple interviews with Amy, following her story. You've been on Marianne's show, you've been on my show, you've been interviewed in several different shows. I think even mainstream media a couple times right now, or talk to me. Like, what is your background and what, I know there's a couple different things going on here, but just basically, what is your background? What is your professional background, and what's your moral life like? Unmute yourself.
Also, I was a nurse for 20 years. I've been a nurse practitioner for about 6 years. I have multiple nursing homes full of elderly patients and rehab patients that I take care of on a daily basis. I have 6 kids. I, never did drugs, never smoked a cigarette, waited to have sex till I got married, probably have been intoxicated with alcohol. I could count on both hands in my lifetime, and I'm 43 years old. So the what they make you out to be is totally different than what reality is. You know, two ex-husbands working with the same crooked lawyer to just create their lies together. It becomes finding a fact, even though, you know, the second one was in jail for 6 months for assault on a female, has two convictions of assault on a female on me and my sister, beat up a police officer, was in jail walking around naked, painting the walls with poop, the floors with poop, and, you know, breaking the sprinkler systems in the jail, which was another felony charge. But his, you know, testimony on stand is finding a fact, and my 3-inch binder of discovery is not entered into evidence. So they just do the same thing, whether you have a lawyer or don't have a lawyer. They won't let you have your discovery. They won't let you have your evidence. And what they use as evidence and findings of facts is just two people that are lying together, like two pathological liars can both say the same thing. And then your evidence is not considered or taken into effect, and then your findings of fact are totally different than what the truth is.
100%. You know, you couldn't have said it any better. Let's go back to, how many years has this been for you, Amy? How
14,
many years?
14
years. Okay, now go back 14 years ago.
Right.
Go back 14 years ago, before this diabolical started, this insanity. Not knowing about family court, okay? Because again, these are not CPS cases. Not knowing about, or they might have been some in CPS in some of the cases, but mostly this is family court cases. Did you ever, in your wildest dreams, okay, think that anything was possible, that anything could possibly happen like this? Especially to you.
You wouldn't think that, you know, I have such a clean background and they could create all this stuff on me. But the problem is that it's just the monopoly behind the scenes. So even the evidence to the judge is not the correct evidence. They use, you know, guardian ad litems and lawyers and, you know, fake people to give a fake story, and they don't care about the truth. They want lies to be presented to continue this monopoly and continue this money-making scheme. I spent $250,000 in lawyer fees. He spent over $1 million. I've been the only time I ever got any justice is when I was actually my own lawyer, because my own lawyer would sign me up for things like psych evaluations and supervised visitation and guardian ad litems. It looks like in my file that I signed myself up for these things, not just in one county, but in 2, Mecklenburg County. And then 10 years later, the same exact schemes, the same exact things happening in Cabarrus County. After my judge actually sat on stand in Mecklenburg County, screaming at my ex-husband, screaming at the guardian ad litem, because there is something that's called the orange rule that the judge has to actually tell on the lawyers and all the people that if you're saying that fraud is happening and you're saying all this stuff is happening to you, the judge has to actually legally tell the state or the bar or it, because of this orange rule of what's happening to you. 90% of the time, the judge is actually the problem with it and just goes along with what the evil or lies are. But there's some judges out there that actually have a heart and have some sort of ethics and some sort of conscience. They're not a narcissist themselves, that are finally like, this is enough, you can't do this anymore. And so I really feel like it's time for that to happen on February 9th.
Well, and I can assure you just what it makes me feel like fighting for all these people, and when I invoke certain things, it does help, but it's not enough. It's really not enough, because a lot of these judges are still making horrendous orders. But yes, I have seen, you and I have both seen a change of heart in judges, but it's not enough, again, because it has to cover the whole country. It can't just be different menus and different recipes and different courts. I'd like to see the whole thing abolished, but what a pleasure it is when I see judges doing some of the right things. Because if you were to invoke your rights in the court and they were to be followed and held accountable, all of this insanity and crazy making would not happen. I'm going to have you hold your thought right there, Amy, because I have one more which is, I'm going to bring you back out though. Thank you. I'm going to, oops, sorry, I put you on a solo. I'm going to bring out my, my very own, Hannah. How are you? This is my twin. And she's unmuted.
Hi.
You've seen a lot. You have a lot to
Yes.
say, but before you do, tell us about your background. Tell us about your professional background and your moral background.
Yeah. So first, I'd like to say massacre is not hyperbole. It's the appropriate word to use in this scenario for sure. So I'm almost 46 years old. I was married. I've been married twice. Actually, the second one was kind of a quick one. I always worked. I went to college in Santa Barbara. I'm from California. I have 2 master's degrees, one in special education because I have a child with some special needs, which was a motivation for me. I have a master's degree from Regent University here in Virginia in and same because I don't feel I even measure up at all to their successes. But I've never been in jail. Well, these ladies have been in jail for things that were made up, but I've never been accused of anything. I did get a traffic ticket once for speeding, but pretty much that's it. I was a stay-at-home mom for a little while, especially when my first child was born. He's the one with the special needs. And I have 3 little boys. And actually, I've never told my story before, which is interesting and I don't even know if you want me to, but
That's because when I keep ours, we don't even get a chance to tell ours.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's very hard, especially like I've delved into Marianne's story in her book, and obviously I follow her podcast, and I just can't even say with any amount of enough intensity how much I respect and love all you ladies, you, Francesca, Amy, Giovanna, and like I respect all you ladies so much, and I know Valerie and Amy more just from interpersonal interaction, but the injustice of it all, that's why I say massacre is the appropriate word, because there really is no way to even assign the proper emphasis to how destructive these situations are to the good mothers, and they really break people down.
There was just this horrendous, it's very hard to watch. I can't really watch it. It breaks my heart. But you recently know that there was they took the FedEx driver, Tyree, and 5 different officers. Actually, it was a young black man, late 20s, beat to death for no reason. And when he tried to escape them beating him up for doing nothing wrong, okay, he did nothing wrong. He was unarmed. He wasn't a thug or anything. He was just sorry for the noise. They beat him so bad he tried to escape, and then they try to say that he was running away from the police because he was guilty of something. No, they were beating on him. They beat him to death, yelling for his mother. Okay, this is all over the media right now. And I look at that, and that breaks my heart. And I look at this story, and I think in my head, doing what I do for over 15 years, that things like that meet the public eye. Okay, they jumped in right away. These police officers are done now. Okay, they're gonna, they'll have their day in court, and America's upset, and America's watching. The unfortunate thing with the situations that are happening within the family court, and I'm going to bring everybody out now. The unfortunate thing with what's happening in the family court is that, if you guys can also just keep yourself muted, is that nobody gets to see, other than the fact, and I do need Valerie, if somebody could please get her to come back in. She's not in the stream, so if we can, somebody help me get her.
I wonder if she's trying to.
Nobody gets to see what's happening unless it's eyes like us in the courtroom, okay? Or they're at your house or whatever when they're doing these crazy things. Nobody gets to see what's happening in the 4 walls of these pseudo courts that are doing these damages to these families, okay? People like Marianne, myself, and others that are exposing these stories in mass numbers, having people have a voice. No, Valerie is not in this group. She needs to be, somebody needs to get her, please, and tell her to get back in.
I'll send her a text. I'll send her a text.
So without people telling your stories live in public, which now it's blowing up all over the place, and kids are telling their stories, it's giving a voice to what's been hidden for so long. We're talking decades of this. And I know all you ladies can agree with me, okay? I am not anti-father. I am not anti-husband by any means. I'm very much for the husband family, very much for. That's my moral compass, actually. So don't give me any nonsense. I don't want to hear it. All I've seen over my 15 plus years in these family courts, all I've seen, I used to think the same thing. Oh, the fatherless home. I was brainwashed it in my churches. The fatherless home, the fatherless home. God is a father. We know that. No. It's not that. It's become very dangerous. Very dangerous. I have 2 for Hannah and nobody for Valerie for some reason. It's become very, very dangerous. And we know that there's fatherhood.gov, fatherhood.gov. I've got mothers who have hired and spent a fortune on father rights attorneys that do not work for them. They play them and keep taking their money, and they're not going to win their case. It is it's rigged. They will use every single trick in the book, and I would love to hear some of your thoughts. They will say the silver bullet. They're going to play that they're not really abusing women when they are. And if a woman, sorry. Sorry, my son's coming in and out of his room and the dog's barking at him like as if she doesn't know her own brother. That's
Valerie, by the way, is trying really hard to get back in, she said.
Well, and she needs to be in good Wi-Fi. Let's have Marianne touch on this one a little bit, okay? So I can mute while my dog barks. Marianne, talk to us about this whole fatherhood thing. You're not against fathers. Nobody in this group is against fathers. We love fathers, men, good marriages, the whole spiel. Nobody here, I can speak for you ladies because I know all of you. Marianne, talk to me about that. What's happening to mothers? Let's talk about what's happening to mothers when they report abuse.
They get more flack from the court for calling CPS and reporting abuse. And even if their relative calls CPS and reports the abuse, then the mother takes the blame for that. It's a losing game. It's already, as you said, it's already rigged. The judges and the attorneys are all in it together. They're all doing ex parte communication. I'm just very discouraged by it all. And I really don't have anything good to say about the family court system. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. This is a dangerous system. It is a dangerous system, even in the certain small, tiny little pockets. And Hannah knows very clearly. We get into these courts. Amy knows. Okay, we get into these courts, and when we get in and we invoke certain rights, Americans with Disability Act, we start literally forcing them to follow the freaking law. Okay, if your Articles of Human Rights were followed, if the Constitution was followed, very simple, basic. And if your ADA rights are honored and followed, none of this would take place. It would literally dismantle the courts. And that's the reason that they do not allow, they fought this for so many decades until we are now a force to be reckoned with. And we force them to follow it. We have courts that they turn a blind eye. You have courts, and Hannah knows this very well, that they're now implementing what they're calling ADA coordinators that you kind of have to answer to get in. I know way more than they do, okay? And a lot of them are very nice people. They're just put in a position. Like they put everybody. There's always a sucker in the front. I always call that. It's a person that's the frontline person. It's a secretary at the front. They're going to be very nice to you. They're warm. They're cordial. They're sweet. Sometimes you get a jerk, but mostly you get very nice people. And they're going to sit there and they're going to tell you, okay, well, we're going to see if the judge can approve this or not. No, the judge has no authority to approve this or not. The judge has zero authority. That's the whole point. Okay. The judge can't approve your human rights. Oh, we're going to see if the judge can order or grant you or deny your human rights. No, sweetheart. If you were a murderer, you still have the same human rights as a non-murderer. Okay. It is what it is. That's it. Okay. Everybody is allowed to breathe. Nobody can take your breath away. It's just that simple. You're breathing. You're alive.
Can I jump in?
Please do.
So just for the sake of some continuity and maybe even like laying a little bit of foundation for anyone that might be listening that hasn't been a part of this sphere of conversation, And it is very discouraging. Like Marianne said, you can see a very long-standing case that seemed like Marianne had a long case. They had shared custody, all these things. A case can shift very quickly and turn on a dime as soon as there's a disclosure of abuse, especially when you're in active litigation. And so you really are stepping on a landmine when you do that. I'm not advising anyone not to act on it, but just to be very, very cautious about how you navigate it, because there are ways to deal with it and it's still the right thing, obviously, to protect your kids. There's a reason why this whole thing is called Punish for Protecting. But the problem is, and we even saw, just like with anonymity, mention a case. I'm in Virginia. Obviously, you guys know that, but the audience may not. And a close friend who's also a client lives here. And when she started laying out the case, and the case had gone on for a few years, and this happened to me too, not a sexual abuse situation, but sexual abuse was disclosed by the child, which is always to be believed. And immediately the case shifted. There was coaching, the whole thing. So it's good for the audience to understand, to watch how these things lay themselves out, because it's always pretty much the same. The more severe the abuse that's disclosed, the worse the retaliation is going to be for the disclosing person, which usually is a mother. And you've already given the foundation. We're not mad at dads and all, so I don't even want to deal with that. You've already said that. We can't control the numbers, okay? It's mostly moms, so get over it if you're bothered by that.
There's no comparison. We all believe
Yeah.
the father.
Yeah, and that's all,
our hearts are to that, of course.
That's exactly right. But we know the numbers are what they are. We can't control it. So, but that's right. Very important for people to know. Once you do, and you go down your state statute, and they mostly mirror each other. In Virginia, boom, boom, boom. It's, general mental health, which is sort of meaningless, although they love to drive a truck through that, which is a whole other conversation, which everyone is nodding over, because everybody on this phone call has had to deal with that too. And I had to do a psych eval and all the same. I'm not going to curse, but you know what I want to say. The addiction, abuse, all these things. Oh, cool. I'm in a good spot. I just left an abuser. And in my case, I was 4 days before having my baby. And I had a child who had just almost died in the hospital, who was up all night screaming. And I had to run from this person. I'm like, oh, I think I'm in a good spot. I'm going down the list. Everything looks good. That's what the state statute says. Boom, boom, boom. Everything's going to be good. I'm going to get an attorney and everything's going to go okay. As soon as you start, even with evidence, and like goes to what Amy said, I wasn't even allowed to have evidence or witnesses at trial. Okay. That's why I said, when Francesca was in my court hearing a few weeks ago, oh, didn't you have a trial? And I said, no, that wasn't a trial, because that's not a trial. Right. So, but the women on this need to understand that here you are going through the steps, well-meaning, and I'm not even criticizing you for going through those steps, but you need to know the landmines you're stepping on along the way, because your case is going to shift in an instant when you start telling about abuse. It's going to put a target on your back. It's not a hopeless situation, like Marianne said. Even though we're all saying there's nothing great to say about family court, it's never a hopeless situation. All of us are believers on this call. Obviously, we believe God is going to sow a victory in this. But we also need to be very informed as you're stepping through, because then you start leaning harder into the AFCs, into the GALs. And the more you do that, the more they'll hate you. That's always the case. And it never made sense. It never makes sense. But that's what happens. I still don't know that I can completely tell you the answer to why. It would probably take like a 5-hour conversation. But it is what happens. So it's important that people understand, and not to not do it, but get help. Get a community of people around you that have dealt with this crap, because it will consume your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The problem is the GALs are they're picked by the abusive party.
Right. And mine was too.
You can't even, I had one recorded conversation with my GAL, and then I got fined and told I can't even talk to them. And it's been 2 years since this last, I call it kidnapping, ex parte kidnapping. So he's ex parte kidnapped my kids 7 times in 14 years, my older 4 out of my 6. And it's all because of based on what he makes up, bogus things he makes up. So, I got that whole screaming event in Mecklenburg County where you can never kidnap the kids again and you can't take them again. So 7 years I had a break. And then this is another kidnapping. And 2 years later, I haven't had a permanent trial. It's been 2 years. And since that time, I've had 3 really major, financial orders of paying, $70,000 to my abuser, $2,800 a month in child support, almost $20,000 in his attorney's fees. So they're trying to financially break me, so I can't even have my kids back, or I couldn't have a place for them to be. But it's not going to happen. They're going to give me my kids back, and these financial orders are ending. And Supreme Court did take my case for all these financial orders, which they only take 1% of the cases. So we're waiting on that too.
I want to kind of lay this out. We're going to go to a commercial, and this is important that you guys that are watching stay on. You can get help if you pay attention to the commercial that's about to air. I have a couple sponsors I want you guys to see, because they've given some great incentives to people. Whatever you purchase through them, they're giving a kickback to help a family that can't afford our help. It's really important. And this is really important, ladies. I want you to think about this question before we go into the commercial. I want you to listen carefully. ACE Research, Adverse Childhood Experiences. They do a test. Okay, you could take it too, and it shows that a child can lose up to 20 years off of their life due to whether they're directly affected by domestic violence, by proxy, meaning maybe the man is beating the woman up, but they're just watching it. Okay. Alcoholism, all kinds of stuff, sexual abuse, and there's different, scores, right? There's ACE scores. Okay. Without going into the social science research aspect of it, just in layman's terms, from what you've experienced, and as you ladies know, there are countless of you out there. If I brought everybody in here, we would never get off the air. We would literally never get off the air. That's the truth. Okay. So, I want to know in layman's terms, in your life as it's affected you, and you've watched it affect your children, and you knew how they were going along, and then what you've witnessed. What have you seen? Valerie has her child back. I have my son. Some of you have them back and forth. Okay. What have you seen happen without the social science research telling you what happened? Because it's one of the largest medical studies ever conducted by the Department of Justice. It's the Supreme Court is very, aware of it, and so on and so forth. The courts should be following that and all the other social science research. We all know they don't. But let's talk about what these custody orders have done to them, and what I want to hear from each one of you when we come back after this break.
We'll be right back after a message. We'll be right back after a message from Punished for Protecting Incorporated. Each new generation of protective mothers is shocked when they first go to family court and find it doesn't favor single mothers, and is willing to jeopardize children. Francesca's harrowing experience with the broken family court system, from which she finally received justice after 8 months of struggle, is proof that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Francesca has one of these unspeakably cruel cases and has responded by shining a large spotlight on widespread failures so other mothers won't be shocked. Punished for Protecting the Injustice System of Family Court by Francesca Amato Banfield, advocate, mother, whistleblower, founder, and TV talk show host of Punished for Protecting. If you are struggling with injustices wrought by our courts, this book will help guide you through the process. Available on Amazon.com. Search Punished for Protecting and get your copy today. Help abolish family court by purchasing Punished for Protecting merchandise. Here are our top sellers. See the link in the YouTube video description to find out how to get your Punished for Protecting t-shirt. Get your high-quality Punished for Protecting t-shirt while supplies last, and let everyone know that you stand for justice. Are you being re-victimized by the family court system? Do you need help with your case? Go online and book a talk with Francesca. Go to punished4being-a-parent.com/book-a-talk. Fill in your name, email address, and message to Francesca. Someone will get back to you within 24 hours. Francesca and her staff of volunteers continue to work tirelessly every single day for parents and children who are in need of their help. There have been multiple success stories, including Francesca's, which gives hope to others in similar situations. Punished for Protecting Incorporated has incurred out-of-pocket expenses with zero funding to help families get their children back or to save their children from being taken. We also have provided funds to help with retainers, food, lodging, and travel. We really need your help so we can continue to provide our many services. Any amount is greatly appreciated. If you'd like to donate or sponsor a family in need of help, go to Cash App, Free the Children. And now back to our broadcast.
I'm just going to show you a quick commercial from one of our sponsors.
Are you tired of those sticker shock mattress and adjustable base prices at those big stores? I sure am, and I'm here to help. Hello, I'm Gara. I am owner here at Marietta Mattresses and More. So if you're local and in the West Virginia or Ohio area and wish to schedule a day with me and a time to come grab yourself a comfortable new mattress at a comfortable price, you can call me at the number below. And if you're not local and still wish to get a tremendous find on a new mattress, check out the website, sapphiresleep.com, and pick yourself out a perfect new mattress and adjustable base, whatever you want, then call me and I can have it shipped directly to you at no extra cost. Be sure that when you call, mention you saw this on here, Punished for Protecting, and you will then receive 50 to 80% off your entire purchase price. Yes, 50 to 80% off. So if you are ready to invest in a good night's rest without breaking that bank, give me a call.
So I just want to say thank her to Gara. She has Marietta Mattress, but it's not just Ohio, it's nationwide. And it's like people like her that care about the vision of Punished for Protecting and what we're doing that she would offer anybody that's seen the commercial here. Just all you have to do is call that number or go on the website, and mention it, Punished for Protecting, and she will give you anywhere between 50 to 80% off. Really can't beat that. We have another sponsor, Lyra Rugs, who has beautiful hand-woven rugs. And here's some pictures. Excuse me. And you can go to Lyra Rugs. Pardon me. You can go to the sponsor, Lyra Rugs, at lyrarugs.com. Lyra Rugs at lyrarugs.com. Let her know that you saw it on Punished for Protecting News. I don't know what the incentives are, but I do know with both of these wonderful ladies, they are doing a percentage back to any families that can't afford. I have multiple families that I've had for years. As a matter of fact, we're already into a brand new year, and we're already maxed out on free clients because of these horrendous cases. And this is a very sad thing. This should not be. This just should not be. And I'm one to say we really need to care about our neighbors because it's affecting everyone. I don't care if you're rich or poor. I don't care what what ethnicity you are, what color you are, whatever. This affects everybody. Okay. And to go back to the question that I asked the ladies here on the panel tonight, if you guys can we'll start maybe with Valerie. Hopefully you have a good Wi-Fi now.
I know.
ACE research, adverse childhood experiences. I want to hear it in real language, not the social science research. Talk to me, Valerie, about what this has done. And social science research, it says it takes off up to 20 years off of a child's life in adulthood. What a horrible thing. This should have never been. Tell me what it's done in real time, in real life with you.
I mean, we are a family of three. It's just me and my two kids, and we don't have a support system of family, for example. It's just me and my kids, you know. And so I think that, I mean, I know for a fact we're all traumatized. My older daughter, who's the spotlight of our family court case, certainly realizes in her own way at 14 that she's been used as a pawn of the court system. I think it makes us feel and realize how vulnerable we really are as a family. I mean, it kind of feels like you have to just not trust anyone. It feels like you can't ask for help. This has done nothing good for my family. Family court and the people that the judge and the AFC colluded with, like some really corrupt people through DSS, have ruined our lives in ways. I mean, I have every goal of moving on and healing, but they have traumatized us for sure. I can't hear.
I own my own mute button. So is it safe to say, Valerie, would you say it's safe to say that family court causes lifetime damage?
Absolutely.
Hannah,
absolutely.
What would you say about that? You got 2 minutes.
Did you say Hannah?
Hannah. Yeah.
You know I'm going to be long-winded, so that's why you said 2 minutes. Okay. No, it made me think of one just quick thing I want to say. I know it's very tempting to feel a lot of shame and guilt about the choices we've made in men, and maybe we couldn't have known what would come from it. But I really want to encourage everyone to just offload that stuff. We have to just move on from it and stop putting ourselves through hell. We got enough to deal with. Otherwise, tremendous harm. So it's my baby who just turned 4, and I have custody of my older kids. It's affected everybody horribly. It still does, because I don't feel like myself all the time. I'm a pretty patient person, but there's always a slight oppression, though we obviously pray that away. And I know God is going to be faithful through these scenarios, but it changes your baseline. I mean, you can't really relax into your life like you would have otherwise. You feel like people are looking at everything you're doing. Like Valerie said, it's hard to trust people. I mean, that's why we're so fortunate to have this grouping of women and some men that we can trust. I can tell you that when my oldest child did an evaluation for after he had a traumatic brain injury, and we did an educational evaluation, he told the evaluator that someone was trying to steal our baby because he must have overheard something about the custody battle, because I was, like I said, a few days before giving birth. So I felt so bad about that. And the little guy is always saying, oh, that's my other life. That's this life. That's my daddy's world. That's this world. Because we do 50-50 right now. And it's so toxic. It's so toxic. I don't even have the words for it. Their minds are divided completely between these two different worlds. And to the point that even at a doctor's appointment, when the doctor asked him, because my middle child was with us and then his dad was there, how many brothers and sisters do you have? And he has 3 at the other house and then 2 here. And he said, oh, just Bubba and Finn, my other kids. And I'm like, what about the other guys? Because that was my time. You could see the division of his mind was just, I'm with my mom right now. It's really sick. It's really toxic. There's nothing good that comes from it. Obviously, it's worse for a lot of people. 50-50, I think, is barbaric. Of course, it's better than nothing. But it still keeps me entrapped to this court order that is written such that I have to continuously be in trial all the time. I can't even put my kid in school. So it's terrible, and everybody feels it. And like I said, the temptation to feel guilt and shame is always ready and knocking, but that's what we have to really push off hard, because it does us no good. And I'm saying that with someone who struggles with that, because every time it comes back, it's the gift that keeps on giving. These situations, there comes the temptation. It's my fault. Why did this happen? That spiral takes no one to a good place. So I just want to say that for everybody too.
Thank you, Hannah. Giovanna. can you touch on mental health and ACE research in real time, in your real life? How has it affected both you and your child?
I mean, obviously as a mother, watching your child be hurt and abused over and over and over again and being constantly silenced. I mean, there's no way, you just can't be okay with that. I mean, it's trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. It's like you get out of it, you have no idea that the court is going to work against you versus protect you and your child. It just builds and builds. And I mean, that's just in our DNA as mothers to protect our children. And when there's a legal institution punishing us for doing that, by taking them away from us, by putting us in jail, by sanctioning us, all of these things, it just doesn't make any kind of sense. And no good mothers is just going to say, okay, yeah, take my child, I don't care if they're suffering. No one's going to do that. So it's PTSD. It's all kinds of complex trauma upon trauma upon trauma. And then as far as my daughter, I mean, her mental health has just suffered tremendously. She was hospitalized last year at 8 years old with suicidal ideation because of her abuser. And she was able to articulate that to the staff there, and that's not something any child, 8 years old, like something any child should be thinking of. And, still they're going with, I coached her, right? That's the narrative, is like, I coached this child to say those things. It's not true. So it's the harm. I mean, we just want peace. We just want peace. That's all we want. And, I don't even know what healing looks like yet, right? We haven't even had a moment to breathe.
It's horrendous. Amy, I have a question. If you had an opportunity to sit before a family court judge and ask any questions or make any statements to that family court judge that was not family court related, just you and a family court judge and maybe an audience around just filming or something like that, and this judge was willing to do this, what would be some of the things you may ask or tell that judge? Because we have judges watching.
I would just start off with ethical decisions. Like just me as a provider, I do certain things for my patients that out of ethics, right? I mean, there can be that I've left some of the nursing home or facilities that I used to work at just because those administrators of those facilities wanted me to do unethical things, like discharge a homeless person to the street. And I'm like, no, that couldn't move one whole half of his body. So that is totally unethical. So the problem is one, they need ethics training and they need domestic violence training, because they get very aggravated with you for getting emotional, for crying, for repeating, like trying to defend yourself while the abuser is sitting there all calm and collective. The thing is both of these men, my ex-husbands, they couldn't even tell you one thing I've ever done to them. They have no trauma, they have no stress, they have nothing around me because I've never done anything to them. But when they're in the room, you can totally see that, they're bringing both of these ex-husbands at the same time in the room with me, with two different lawyers and a guardian ad litem and all these people. You can see how I respond is totally different with all these abusive people in the room, as opposed to even removing me from the room and having like a video camera with the judge. They've had some of the not Supreme Court, but the Superior Court case like that. And I honestly think it was to separate that, emotional attack. So I just think asking the judge, like, what their ethics training, what their domestic violence training was, because you can't be a trauma, ER nurse or a trauma doctor if you don't know anything about trauma, okay? You definitely can't be a judge for domestic violence if you don't know anything about domestic violence, because you're punishing the wrong person.
Sorry, that's an understatement. That's you know, that's drop the mic. I mean, that's it right there. You know, and you know, I see these women gravitating. Oh, this attorney has, look at this. This attorney teaches at this school about domestic violence, and this one does that. Oh, and that judge, she's you know, she used to fight for domestic violence. So you think you're safe, and you get in there, and I know you can all say the same thing. It doesn't turn out that way, does it? You're either a liar, you're coaching, or you're crazy. That's the three. That's it. That's the playbook. Liar, crazy, coaching. That's it.
The courtroom is intensifying domestic violence. The courtroom is intensifying the domestic violence.
They're intensifying the domestic violence. Marianne, with all these women, and you've interviewed. I mean, you're like you talk. Your show is Slam the Gavel. We laugh. We're like, she's slamming the videos out, man. I've never seen anything before. I didn't even know there was that many hours in a day. I get exhausted after one day. But anyway, everybody here has a story about how they were victims of some sort of abuse, okay? But with that, Marianne, who would you say, you're interviewing both mothers and fathers, correct? And you're interviewing all kinds of professionals and experts and so on. What is the common thread? Who is their abuser? Besides their abuser, who is their abuser? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. What are you hearing? Besides their abuser, their actual abuser.
You know, sometimes it's the mother-in-law that's the abuser. I know that sounds strange, but you know, I know of a woman where her own mother is attacking her husband and making false accusation on the husband got the kids away from them. I mean, I've heard such bizarre stories. And going into when you brought up the ACEs, there is a question like, have you had a parent incarcerated? So that's X amount of points. So my kids all have high ACE scores. My middle son told me he has a high ACE score. And he knows what they are. And, you know, we're talking stomach ulcers, headaches, anxiety at all times.
Sleepless night.
Yeah, even myself, anxiety at all times, like something, you're waiting for the shoe to drop.
Right.
What's in the mail? You know, it doesn't end.
Mailbox, afraid to go to open the mailbox.
Right.
Yeah. And on that note, you know, Marianne, it's funny you said that, because when we look at a normal thinking, we're going to say, okay, well, so-and-so was arrested because they did a criminal activity, and that would be normal justice. But when mothers are being arrested for protecting their children, you know, breathe in, breathe out. It's like, I don't know. I don't understand any other language. Okay. It would be failure to protect if I didn't make this make sense. So now your child suffers ACE scores on the other side, so to speak, because an innocent mom was abused because she was arrested, jailed. Okay. And now the child is traumatized and ripped away from her. Some of them see this happening. They're actually watching it, their parent being taken away in front of them, which should never be. Okay, it should be extreme cases. You know, high-speed chase, murdered 10 people. Yeah, okay, I get that. But not all these other reasons. And then they're going to have this ACE score that goes through the roof not because they were with an abuser, but because they watched their parent or their CPS came knocking at their door and ripped them away. ACE score flies to the ceiling, life is destroyed, traumatized, nightmares, constant drug use, and all the rest starts happening with that. So, but when I say who's your abuser, ladies, if I was going to say to everybody, and I'm probably I'm trying not to lead my witnesses here. If I was all of you who have been abused, who is the main abuser here? I need an answer. Who's the main abuser?
The judge.
The judge.
The judge.
The judge, the opposing attorney, and the ex-husband, and the mother-in-law.
The system. Then
the opposing counsels are really bad for opposing counsel.
Okay.
The judge that listened on stand, and you know, my ex threatened to kill me on stand in front of this judge. That judge gave me an order to pay him $70,000, Judge Knutz, and then that judge is trying to put me in jail 2 days before Christmas. So yeah, the judge, but the crooked lawyers writing up the orders, Jay White, and going for all, but you know, both of my exes. But the crazy thing is, the judge, Christy Wilhelm, she has tried to be fair. She's even said off the stand, you'll never have to pay child support. Jay White can never be representing your ex-husband, Matthew Bledsoe. But what she says off the stand, the lawyers omit from the orders. The lawyers write up the orders. So in the order that was supposed to be on my side, it says, oh, she's being warned that she's going to have a gag order. Oh, she's being warned that she's going to have a gatekeeper order. Oh, she's being warned that she better shut her mouth. When the judge never said that. There's a whole page of it just attacking me from the lawyer. When the judge actually spoke something on my side, it's not even put in the order.
I'm a witness.
You know what, Lynn made a good point. It's not just, so it's obviously opposing counsel, the guardians ad litem and AFCs and all the whatever nothing names they give them. It's also the co-parenting counselors, the ones that are appointed through the courts.
Yeah.
They really facilitate a lot of this crap and really stress you out.
What I've seen over the years is the child attorneys or guardian ad litem, child attorneys, whatever you want to call them, they lie for the children. The children are not in the room with you. They're not in the courtroom, and they lie for them. They lie not for them. They lie against what their real wishes are. I've seen that over and over again. I've met the children. Right. I know them personally, and I've seen it. And it's the guardian ad litems and the child attorneys that are coaching the children. Okay?
Right.
We had a case recently where the child wanted nothing to do with his abusive father. He actually witnessed his father abuse the mother in horrific ways. I won't say how, and does not want. And so little by little, they're slithering him to visits. Now they want to do. Now that the child attorney said to the kid, I don't want these visits. I don't want them. And the child attorney says, well, let's just force him into one day. And now they're going to tell the judge that that's what the kid wants. No, the kid never said that. The kid was manipulated by the child attorney. Manipulate more time. So they can.
And then there you go with the more trauma for mom. And I know the story you're talking about. Then you go just adding more injury. Then they increase. The child is double-digit aged. He can say what he wants, and what he's witnessed is something that he should never see this man again. So
he told the attorney what he wants, and in any of the attorney handbooks, you guys can look them up. Every state, it's pretty much the same, says that they're supposed to treat the child just like your attorney would treat you. What do you want? Okay, then I got to fight for that. I got to fight for what you want. Unless there's abuse for a child, then they're supposed to gear the court toward protecting the child, which they never do. They're too busy calling mom a liar, a coacher, and crazy, which are all very serious violations of human rights and ADA rights. But anyway, then they coach the child to say, this is what you want. And then they go before the judge without the child present. And they go ahead and they lie in the court and say the child wanted this, but they all know what they're doing. It's not like the judges don't know what they're doing. They know the game. They see one after the other. It's a rotating door. So they know exactly what they're doing. They know that this is wrong. Giovanna, let's talk about you for a second. Let's talk about your situation for a second. You not only have this case that's going on, but you've been dragged through court in a limbo state for a long time. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we just got notice they pushed it back another almost 2 months for another preliminary hearing. I mean, all they do is push things out. They schedule something, they reschedule it, they push it out, to Amy's earlier point, I'll get to a trial date completely prepared. I've got all my evidence. I've got witnesses. I've got, everything in the kitchen sink to prove everything that I'm saying. And judge doesn't allow any evidence, doesn't allow any witnesses, doesn't allow any testimony, and forces you under the threat of losing your child altogether or putting you in jail, forces you into this settlement that then takes forever because opposing counsel is the one that's going to draw it up. And then they don't do it. And then they don't do it. And then they don't do it. And then you get served with a violation notice on an order that you never even got served. It just continues and continues and continues.
Right. And then not to speak for you, but then are all these different things that are happening causing you further trauma?
Of course, because now it's like, okay, so is there a warrant issued for my arrest? I have no idea. Or are the cops just going to come and take me away? And then what happens with my job? I just don't show up to work now. What happens with my child? Now she's stuck with her abuser all the time. Like you can't make a move. You can't breathe. You can't get too comfortable just existing because you need to constantly be vigilant. You need to constantly be on high alert because to Marianne's point, what's coming in the mail next? Like, we just don't know. Like, it's nonstop.
I want to touch on these two comments that I want to bring up. This one here by Sabrina, and I want somebody to talk about this. Or the abuse is ancient history. We've all heard that, right? We can't bring this up anymore. This was last year. This was last month. This was last week. Is that helpful, Marianne? Is that helpful? The abuse is ancient history. Is it ever ancient history? Does an abuser just stop being an abuser?
No.
Marianne, talk about that. Mute, unmute, unmute.
Even when you approach the statutes of limitation, for instance, you've had abuse, it still is affecting your life to this day. So how could there be a statutes of that would negate the statutes of limitation, because you are still suffering from these issues that happened, we'll say 2 years ago or 4 years ago. It just doesn't go away.
Right.
It doesn't go away, and that it negates the statutes of limitation. And I did use case law in that in my federal case that the judge didn't bother reading.
Here's one right here by Vicky. I've been forced to agree to orders by threats of losing my kids. Not by a show of hands or not. Did anybody get threatened to do this? That you lose your children if if you didn't follow this psychotic order?
Yeah.
And the order is the order something normal? Is the order something normal? Placing your child with an abuser? Like, there's not a law on this planet. There's not a law in every single state. In every single state in this country, there's penal codes for misdemeanors that work their way to felonies if you knowingly and willingly send your kid to an abuser. Who here has been forced to send their kids to an abuser? Anybody? Anybody forced to send your kid to an abuser? Okay. So by threat of losing your children, somebody help me in this group. Valerie, let's hear from you. Help me here for a second and tell me where it's healthy to force children away from a parent as a form of punishment to that parent. Can you make that make sense?
It's not healthy at all. And again, it's just further traumatization for life for me, the mom in general, and the children. I mean, the system has just traumatized us as a family for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, 100%. So it's safe to say, and if anybody wants to chime in, and if anybody wants to put any questions up for these ladies, please do. Now is the time before we wrap up the show, so they can answer any specific questions that you may have. But if anybody wants to add anything right now, Hannah had to go. Her child was getting sleepy. You just unmute yourself. Go ahead, Marianne, if you had something to say.
Okay. Another thing that they pulled was, they shoot out the silver bullets of, she's crazy and she's alienating the kids. Yeah. And I looked over like, what do you mean alienating the kids? We've been co-parenting for almost 10 years till you bozos came in here and just plowed down this whole family. So they're using the term they're abusing the term parental alienation to fit their own false narrative, to soothe this bruised male's ego so he can get these kids and just inflict more pain. It's all psychological. And the thing is, and that's the red flag for the judge. If you've got an abuser that's trying to take those kids away full custody, if the abuser is doing this, then that person is the child psychological abuser. And these judges aren't getting that.
100%. Yes. Oh, no, I was just going to say, Marianne, to finish what you were saying. Go ahead.
When a judge writes no contact orders, no contact via iPhone, landline, iPad, and no visits on holidays, especially Mother's Day or Father's Day, then the judge is also participating in child psychological abuse. There's too many child abusers in black robes right now. And it's one call after another of crisis calls I'm taking. It's one podcast after another that people are suffering under these judges that don't care.
I couldn't agree more. Marianne, there's a judge watching right now. There's actually several.
Really?
What would you like to tell them that they should be doing in their so-called courts, that is actually the people's court? What would you tell them that would, if they had a heart and they actually cared, what would you tell them that their orders are doing to women and children specifically?
Okay, their orders are too cut and dry. When they sequester a child, they need to ask, who drove you here? And what did they tell you to say to me? That's what they need to do. Because when you have an abuser bringing a child and driving them to the courthouse, they're coaching that kid what to say. And that's what my ex was doing.
True.
And that's what, I mean, those are the big things. Second of all, to deny a mother or father to see their kid on Mother's or Father's Day. If you've got a parent that is totally taking that kid away from that other targeted parent, that's your red flag.
Right.
That is the red flag. I mean, if you have clear-cut evidence of abuse, oh yeah, by the way, read your evidence. Parents are presenting evidence all the time. Judges are not reading it. My federal court judge didn't read anything and ruled it irrelevant. I'm tired of it. If someone is presenting evidence, at least look at it.
I agree. Valerie, same question for you. Judges are watching right now, and you could tell them something that would change the trajectory of these cases to help better save families and keep them protected. What would you tell them if they were going to listen to you and do it and implement it?
Have a heart, be human, don't be robotic. The decisions that you make based on mood or money or collusion or, the cult and culture of family court and your alumni association, I mean, it literally ruins people's lives for the rest of their lives. We typically, because I'm not anti-man either, but this is all mothers right now here, and it's mostly moms who are targeted in family court. We always have to be smarter and stronger, just in life, just from the get-go, whether we consciously want to be or not. And when we become a mother, our role is to protect our children. That is my primary role. That is a mother's primary role. Okay, so to traumatize us by ripping our child away when there's no real reason, and then further traumatizing us with the demonic rituals of family court, and then telling us that we have to undergo a psychiatric or psychological evaluation, and then your AFCs or GALs who you collude with to coach my child to say, I would like my mom to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. I mean, this is truth. I mean, that is abuse. This means that family court is actually an agent of domestic terrorism. Mm-hmm. I'm aware of my words, and I believe everything I just said.
Mm-hmm. As an ADA expert, that's actually a direct violation of the federal codifications. Under the ADA, they cannot be doing what they're doing. They cannot be doing these psych evals. You know what? These judges and those of you that are watching,
or put you in jail for not doing a psych evaluation.
Yeah, they can't do that, and technically they don't even have the authority or the wherewithal to deem somebody an expert or not. They're not an expert in that topic as it is. So how do they deem somebody an expert that they don't know anything about? It could be mechanics, for heaven's sake. The court system is a complete debacle. It's completely insane. I have a different question for Amy. A different question for you, Amy, because because of your background too. But like, boys, okay, I have a boy. Anybody else here have boys? Or okay, great, perfect. That's perfect. That is your perfect person I asked for. We are raising boys. We love boys. We want to raise them to become, I can probably speak for you in a sense, Amy, because I know you. We want them to be good husbands and fathers one day, right? That's going to be, right? That's what we want? Yes or no? You want them to grow up healthy. And when you see a boy, and we love these boys, and you see a grown man that went through whatever he went through, now you see him acting out and having anger issues and physically assaulting someone. God forbid your boy, as you're raising him, you start seeing these patterns. You still love that child. We don't not love even these men that are out there. They're doing bad things. They just need to be held accountable so they don't continue to do these bad things. Okay. And I believe that it starts with training the youth to be careful who you marry, to be smart about who you marry, because marriage is a lifelong covenant. To be cautious, to watch for the signals and the signs. But when these children go through this kind of abuse through a family court, and they start picking up these traits of narcissism, drug use, alcoholism, abuse to women, because maybe it's starting out subtle in high school, but it works its way. And once you get married and you're an adult, you got more mature abuse factors. So Amy, if you are talking to a judge right now, or judges that are watching this program right now, what would you tell them about that very factor, about how they're not helping the man? They're not helping America's men to be all that they should be. How would you touch that one, Amy?
I mean, I can just attest for my older boy, being more angry, punching his sisters at times, just over random things that's happened at least 3 times that I can think off of the top of my head. And so they can, they've witnessed the behaviors, they've witnessed the abuse on me. And so then they behave in an acting out manner that's, physical. So it is typical that men are more physical and they're acting out than women. And so that my ex-husband's, the collaborative agreement now of them, claiming that I'm the one that punched somebody, not the other man that's punching someone, that had, I'm the one with the black eyes and the bruises all over me. And he already has a conviction of doing that. So the men are going to be more aggressive physically because they're not as verbal, right? So as women are usually more verbal. So we have to teach our men to use their words and to actually communicate better, and from the start. I mean, because I have 2 boys and 4 girls, and the girls are definitely more verbal, but I can tell you when my girls have been physical too at times, and it's witnessing this abuse, some of the girls have been physical too, but they verbally will say stuff first, like start verbally talking and yelling and screaming at you first, so you have a little more time to bring them down, where boys might just act out physically before they even verbally say much at all. So I mean, we just need to teach people how to be human beings. I mean, I say that my parents taught me how to stand on my own 2 feet, and about God first, and then how to stand on my own 2 feet. But that we need to be able to teach our kids how to behave. Some of them can't even have relationships with each other. And all this technology has really turned the children into these robotic people. This technology has changed. That's when they hit the technology age is when they started getting verbally abusive to you, and the verbally attacking you, and the friends are more important than you, and the boyfriend's more important than you, or girlfriend's more important than you, and they start having this rude behavior towards you. And if you respond to the rude behavior, all of a sudden you're abusive. So there needs to be some sort of accountability in parenting with these judges, because the judges need to know that you have to be able to parent your child. You have to be able to say, there's rules about dating, there's rules about curfews, there's rules about whatever it is. You have to be able to set rules, and you shouldn't be punished as a parent for making rules for your child. The narcissist makes no rules. The narcissist lets them stay up all night. The narcissist lets them do whatever they want. So of course they're going to choose the narcissist over you, because you're the responsible parent.
Right. That's right. That's right. So looking at this comment from Bailey Smith, who I'm going to have on my program, by the way, creating another
narcissist.
We can all agree with this, creating another cycle of abusers, right? And judges that are watching, hopefully you're getting an education today. Tammy said, they are setting up America's future for failure. The abused children will have mental issues, drug problems, etc., which could very well be their goal. And she said, new world order. So, and everybody's agreeing with this. So what I want to say, because we do have to wrap up the program, and these ladies are one more awesome than the next. And thank you for your wealth of knowledge, because you've lived it. But I want to just say, yes, that's exactly what's happening. It's setting it up for the future so the family court can continue this craziness, because it is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, multi-trillions. I mean, look at, you just got done saying, he paid $1 million, you paid this much, add that by everybody that goes, trillions of dollars are filtering through, right? And they're creating abusers. So we have to have a heart for these young boys that have been put through this hell, that will one day marry, or they'll make dysfunctional girls, and then it just be a disaster. Okay. Which family court loves it. They can cash in on all of that. They want that. And they're trying to rip us good parents, the good ones, the safe ones, the protective ones, the ones that are sensible. They want to rip that discipline, that loving discipline, those proper boundaries from us, so that they can keep creating this type of money-making machine. Marianne, your mute is on. I have to keep mute.
Okay. So to add on to what you were saying, these family courts are generating personality disorders in our children. And by doing that, they are going to destroy 6 generations to come, as in Dr. Mark Roseman's book, that Preserving Family Ties, that once you destroy, what a child once was, you're creating a personality disorder, and now you're going to have generations of personality disorders. So thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Anybody else want to add to it before we wrap up? Amy? Unmute, honey. I might be able to do it for you.
But God can change that. Just God can change this in an instant. All this years of abuse, and I've seen it. I mean, I just believe it, and I believe that if we come in together as a unity and we start praying, there's going to be a change in the whole system. That Amen. God can use ungodly people for just things. God is the truth. God is Jesus is the light. We have to walk in that, because there's a time right now of exposure. We're exposing this unjust, corrupt system. And now that the exposure is out, it's time for justice. Justice is now. It's right now.
And I want to add one thing, and I'm going to have Giovanna. I see you had your finger up. I want to say this is something that annoys me to no end, and people know. And then I actually do I've turned a few men around that have tried to argue with me on Facebook. I don't do well with that. This is not true. It's not true. It's called father's rights. It's not true. Father's rights sounds wonderful. I want fathers to have rights too. Sensible rights. It's not true. Children in one family households that are safe, loved, disciplined properly in love, raised healthy, do not turn out to be thugs, gangbangers, and end up in prison. That is a lie and a disgrace to even trump that disgusting message. Tell that to all the good parents out there that had to leave an abusive situation that family court didn't destroy, okay, and raised. I am a well-adjusted professional who's changing the world, okay? I don't know how many others here came from a broken home, okay? And I am not broken, okay? And neither do you have to be. And I did not end up in jail. I'm not a gangbanger. I'm a productive member of society with faith. And I've been through a lot, and yet God has healed me of, I can't even begin to tell you how many things. So that is a lie. Do not believe it. It is a false narrative. It is a false message. Just like when you report abuse, you're crazy, and you're a coacher, and you're a liar. None of that is true. Those are lies, and we're going to continue to call them out on this program. Giovanna?
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to say one of the judge's favorite phrases to keep throwing out there is the best interest of the child, the best interest of the child, the best interest of the child. And yeah, absolutely. I think we all have the best interest of our children at hand. And it's such a terrible misconception and such a brutal and just cruel misconception to believe that the best interest of the child is shared time with an abusive parent. It's not. I think we can all agree that if our exes, for whatever reason, it didn't work out, if they were good, loving, safe fathers, we would want them to have time with these children, but they're not. They're dangerous. They're abusers, and they are harming our children irreparably. And more so the longer this goes on. So it's the best interest of the child is not a one size fits all. That looks different for every situation. And we need to be listening. It goes back to that domestic violence training. If these judges had any idea what domestic violence is, you would not be sitting behind that bench saying this is in the best interest of the child.
Oh, you would not be. And they throw, you're so right. They throw these words around like they know. And the one that really angers me is like the guardian ad litem of the child attorneys when they're fighting for usually the abuser, calling the mother a coacher. they're going to throw those words out. Best interest of the child is to see, or this is one I love. Let's give the father who molested the child therapeutic time with the child. Well, what are you teaching a young girl if, God forbid, when she gets older, she's molested or raped in college? It's okay. I'm going to have a therapeutic relationship with my rapist. Well, no, that's different. How is that different? You just said that the biological father, she had to have a therapeutic relationship with. You're forcing her to be with the person that abused her. You're giving her a message that abuse was okay. And it's not okay. And you're not a church, you're a court. You had no right to even go there. You had zero right to even go there. Okay. And that's what they're doing. Therapeutic supervised visitation. Okay. Until they actually give them full custody and take the child from the supposed coaching mother. But you cannot coach a rash for 3 years. And you cannot coach regression when a child is regressing because she was sexually abused. And you cannot coach all these things. That's not coachable. So stop throwing around words you don't know what you're talking about. Somebody used the word coach today properly. I forget which one of you said it. I think it was Marianne. That's coaching when you're driving a kid to the Lincoln hearing and you're saying, if you tell them what I did to you, I will kill your cat and your mother and the dog. Okay, that's coaching. That's threats of harm. Okay, so stop it, because that's what it is. In my book, I actually have a portion that talks about like the opposite of normal. Okay, the opposite of reality. And that's what we're seeing here in these courts. Ladies, I love this last one I put up on the screen here. Exactly 100%. They grow up respecting women when they're raised right versus having anger towards them. And what we see a lot of times is these children, a lot of them have fled from their abusers. They don't want any part of them. They wake up in their brain, but they're still emotionally not connected properly. They have a lot of healing that has to go on, but they end up having anger toward their mom because they can't put it where it needs to go. And they're like afraid of therapy. I'm seeing a lot of this lately. It's really hard. And we know that those boys are going to grow up into be the same kind of thing. Okay. So we have to get this now. And you guys, you have more of a voice than you think you do. We have more power than we think that we do. We're living in a time right now where, social media is blowing up all over these types of stories. Kids are speaking up. We want to give these stories because we want the audience to know. We want you to know what's happening. We want the judges to hear, wake up, come into the reality of the real world. But at the same time, kids are speaking up, adult children are speaking up. I have this go on all these different channels. I see kids speaking up at the torment they went through CPS. None of this is good. None of this is in the best interest of the child. So stop throwing the term around. Ladies, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate all of you. We will be back. We have lots of great programs that will be airing. I have some really great stuff that's coming around the pike. Marianne is familiar with what's about to happen. And we have some great, powerful stuff that's about to happen. So stay tuned to Punish for Protecting. If you're not on my Punish for Protecting Facebook page, Punish for Protecting News Facebook, not my primary page with my name, but Punish for Protecting News, please get on there and go ahead and turn on the notifications and all that, because that's where a lot of my program will be aired. Rumble, Punish for Protecting News, Punish No More and Free to Protect, which is the end result. Punish No More and Free to Protect. That's on YouTube. And there's several other stations, and pretty soon we are looking to be picked up by a network, which I'm very excited about. So please stay tuned and please turn on your subscriptions. I really do appreciate it. Ladies, again, thank you so much for being on, and I will see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.